Good morning. Welcome to Washington Journal on Election Day 2000. Our phone lines are open right now, so we'd like you to give us a call and tell us your thoughts and impressions and recollections on this campaign that's just passed and is just concluding on this Election Day 2000. 202-624-1111 is the line we've set aside for supporters of Governor Bush. Supporters of Vice President Gore can call us at 202-624-1115, and others use 202-737-6734. All of our phone lines are open right now. If you thought about calling us, this would be a good time. November 7th was also Election Day in 1876. Samuel Tilden won the popular vote. But you don't hear about President Tilden because several southern states sent two sets of electors to the Electoral College. That dispute led to a congressional commission which chose Rutherford B. Hayes as our 19th president. That's one of the elections we'll be talking about with Michael Goldstein, the author of Guide to the 2000 Presidential Election, about the Electoral College and the questions you may have about it. Then we'll talk about exit polling and projections with Frank Newport of the Gallup poll. He'll talk about what you can expect to see and hear tonight as the returns come in. And in our last hour today, beginning at 9 o'clock Eastern Time, we'll talk about election history with two historians and ask your thoughts on national elections from the past, your recollections and what you've read about. John Kornacki of Johns Hopkins University and Susan Tolchin of George Mason University here to talk about election history. This is what some of the front pages look like this morning. The Los Angeles Times, the headline is "Campaign Closes with Candidates Racing to the End," and these photographs have Democratic candidate Al Gore stopping in Waterloo, Iowa, and Republican George W. Bush in Chattanooga, Tennessee. That's the front page of the Los Angeles Times. Front page of the Philadelphia Inquirer, "A day to vote and then wait," has George Bush in Green Bay, Wisconsin, a picture of Al Gore in Flint, Michigan. That's the Philadelphia Inquirer. And the front page of the New York Daily News has a couple of photographs of the candidates in Chattanooga and in St. Louis. The headline is "Pick'em, Bush and Gore race to the wire." And the front page of the New York Post, "It's up to you." Those are the front pages that we're seeing. Some of the stories on the inside of the newspapers that we have this morning. The New York Times has this. It's an Election Day outlook, and they talk about a number of things. One is the weather. A lot of talk about the turnout and how it's affected by the weather. Their weather map shows it's going to be cloudy in parts of the east and the upper Midwest, a little bit of snow in the Dakotas, some rain in the panhandle of Texas and New Mexico, and a little bit of cloudiness out west, but for the most part, cold but clear through the mountain states. To the right of that are the poll closing times, and what they've done here in the Times is they've darkened in the states, and the poll closing times are Eastern. So what you see is the polls close as they roll from east to west. For example, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, some of the states, Virginia closing at 7. Then another large block of states closing at 8, including Texas, Oklahoma, Michigan, Wisconsin, Illinois. Then at 9 o'clock, the High Plains states, the mountain states closing. New York polls close at 9 o'clock. And then after that, the polls close in the western and mountain states, with Iowa, however, having a late closing time. And part of this in the New York Times today is also this. It's the television coverage for tonight. C-SPAN's coverage begins at 8 p.m. Eastern Time and will go till 3 a.m. or longer if necessary. Greenville, Mississippi, a supporter of Governor Bush. Good morning.
I'm calling about the charitable giving by the Eastern Seaboard has the lowest percentage of charitable giving in those states of any states in America. I can understand now why they're so liberal. They keep their money in their pocket and want the government to pay for everything. Thank you.
And Cambridge, Massachusetts, a supporter of the Vice President. Good morning.
Good morning. I was just listening to people talk about the election last night, people that I know, and someone said that the commentators on television pretended to take George Bush seriously from the beginning and pretended that he was really saying things and putting out ideas all during the debates and speeches when he was really saying nothing at all. And that we sort of felt that the TV commentators sort of threw the election in Bush's direction that way. And, of course, that along with the Nader factor may allow Bush to win.
Thanks, Massachusetts. Pat in Missouri, good morning.
Good morning. I'm a Bush supporter, but I don't agree with him on some of the issues. I think he's going to have to give ground on taxes and probably on the defense buildup. But here in Missouri, I think the chances are pretty good that Gore will carry the state because of big sympathy vote for the Carnahans.
Thanks, Patton. Cowpen, South Carolina. Good morning.
Good morning. Let me get my TV down. This morning I'm a Al Gore supporter. All through the election I've been following Ralph Nader, got the Ralph Nader bumper sticker. But yesterday I went home. On the way home, I stopped by the post office, and there was a check from the IRS for $71,000. And ever since then, I've been when I got that check, I said, let's keep the incumbents in office.
What was the check for?
Well, it was some kind of refund.
$71,000.
$71,000.
Thanks for the call from South Carolina. Style section, the Washington Post. Too early to call. A close race presents challenges to the media. If you're watching the Tube this evening, you may be in for a marathon night as the seemingly endless presidential campaign staggers into a last gasp suspense-filled overtime, or not. The network anchors could well declare the next occupant of the White House by 9 or 10 p.m. Eastern Time, angering much of the West where the polls would still be open. Or they could be drinking plenty of coffee and blitzing us with color-coded maps, Howard Kurtz writes. That's in the style section of the Post. This story that he writes jumps to the inside with this. All major news organizations get their exit poll data from an outfit called Voter News Service. All agree not to call a state until a majority of the polls have closed in that state. A network can make its own call or go along with the news services unless it doesn't smell right to us, says Al Ortiz, CBS's special events producer. But any projection that one candidate has reached 270 electoral votes could spark a Western backlash. Indeed, California's Secretary of State Bill Jones last week urged news organizations not to project a presidential winner before 11 o'clock because it could depress turnout in the West. Control of Congress could hinge on the outcome of key House and Senate races in the Pacific time zone. Philadelphia, good morning.
Hi, good morning. Yes, I'm voting for Ralph Nader because, number one, so far we've been spending $320 billion a year on the military. Al Gore would like to increase this. He wants to put $68 billion into a trust fund for the power companies as an incentive not to pollute. So basically he's bribing big business not to pollute instead of making it against the law to pollute. He's against the cap on the prescription medications, which, by the way, are researched and developed with the taxpayers' money. So basically we are charged twice, once to research and develop it, and then when we go to buy it, we are overcharged. As far as campaign finance, I had spoke to Al Gore. He was here in Philadelphia, and he was in a diner that I was in, and he said that he does not see anything wrong with the lobbyists coming to him for a favor. I said, well, there's a difference between asking for a favor and paying for a favor. So he does not want to get rid of the 22,000 lobbyists. He doesn't want to get rid of any of the PACs. He is for the corporate financing of campaigns.
Thanks for the call, Philadelphia. A lot of folks in this first half hour as our phone lines are open. Your thoughts on this Election Day 2000. Our next call, a supporter of Governor Bush, is in Shenandoah, Pennsylvania. As we hear from Pennsylvania, we'll show a little bit of what's happening in Austin as preparations are being made there for whatever happens tonight. Shenandoah, Pennsylvania, good morning. There's Pennsylvania.
Good morning.
Hi.
This year I was watching the election campaign pretty closely, and I'm a registered Democrat. But I think Al Gore's making a lot of promises that he's not going to be able to keep, just as well as George Bush isn't going to be able to keep a lot of his promises either. I think this pretty much comes down to picking the lesser of two evils again.
Thanks very much. Long Island, a supporter of Mr. Gore. Good morning.
Good morning. Yes, I was wondering if people understand that there is a conspiracy in the media to suppress all the bad things that are known about George Bush, like his insider trading problems, all this about the drunken driving between him and Cheney that has been pushed on the back pages of the newspaper.
Who do you think is involved in a conspiracy, as you suggest?
Moguls that own the media, that they're suppressing the people from telling the truth and showing the real side of George Bush, who is a academic lightweight. People better understand that unless you're as rich as Bill Gates or as rich as all of these media moguls, their life will drastically change under George Bush, because we may get our $200 tax break, but all these rich people are going to get $1 million tax breaks off the backs of the money that we've saved for our future and our children's future.
Thanks for the call. Howard Kurtz continues to write in his media column this morning about coverage of the election, but this a different angle. If the election drags into the wee hours, the East Coast newspapers will be in a major pickle. Although some are slowing their presses to try to stretch out deadlines, they'll miss a growing number of home subscribers and outlying areas if the outcome isn't clear beyond 1 a.m. He writes, these days, of course, they can post real-time results on their websites. And that's what Howard Kurtz writes in the Washington Post this morning. Then on the front page of the Washington Times today is this notice: late papers tomorrow. Some subscribers to the Times will receive their papers slightly later than usual tomorrow because the editors will hold editions to later deadlines so as to include latest national election results. An election extra will be printed at dawn with final returns and will be on sale throughout the day. Mason City, Iowa. Good morning.
Hi, this is an independent voter in Mason City calling with 3 reasons to vote against Bush, reasons that you may not have thought of. First, Bush says, I think only Christians can go to heaven. What a narrow, smug, anti-Christian attitude. Second, he says, I trust the people, not the government. Governor, we the people are the government. Third, his Vietnam service. At least Clinton agonized over the moral problems. Bush just simply had a friend call the Speaker of the House, the Texas House of Representatives, and got him to call the AG for the Air National Guard, and boom, he was out of the whole thing, and he went AWOL for a year.
Thanks, Iowa. Richmond, supporter of the governor. Good morning.
Happy Election Day.
You too.
I'm calling to say that a few calls back, that lady called in about a conspiracy. That's the Democratic chant. But this is what I want to say. The issues and everything are important, but I think there are a lot of people out there that want to feel proud again of the president and of the White House. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Richmond. USA Today's headline election news coverage will fulfill dreams of political junkies. Martha Moore writes, television networks squeezed Al Gore and George W. Bush's nomination into an hour and a half of coverage. But TV news will stay on the air until dawn if necessary to declare one of them the next president. And in talking about that late night coverage, there's a quote from TV anchor Britt Hume saying, this may be a young political reporter's fantasy, but it's more of an old political reporter's nightmare. Lebanon, Tennessee supports Mr. Gore. Good morning.
Good morning. It's so delightful to be able to speak to C-SPAN and their audience. I realize now, after watching all what's going on, is that the American people have a problem with comprehension. When Bush kept repeating he trusts the people, if you look back at the Republicans' record, way back to Truman's time and before, they did nothing for the people. The people he must be talking about is big business. And when a man is going to be president, he should at least know the names of the Supreme Court justices. When he said Anthony Scalia, who he is supposed to have met, when the man's name is Antonin, I mean, come on, ladies and gentlemen of the United States, is this what we want in the White House? Someone that can't even remember one of the Supreme Court justices' names?
Thanks, Lebanon. We're seeing pictures from the War Memorial Plaza in Nashville, where tonight's festivities will be for the Vice President. Biloxi, Mississippi, a supporter of the governor. Good morning.
Hi, I'm a retired Army officer that lives in Biloxi, Mississippi, and I just hit my mute. I'd like to encourage everyone to vote. I'm a supporter of Governor Bush. I've been very ashamed of the current president, and I think it's affected our military all over, and the fact that he's done things that we're all ashamed of. I'd like to encourage everyone to please get out and vote. Thank you very much for the time to speak.
Thanks, Mississippi. Tampa, Florida, good morning.
Good morning, sir. How are you doing this morning?
Good. How are you?
Very good, actually. It's been a very interesting election, and I tell you what, the third party this year, I'm going to be voting for Ralph Nader, but the sad thing is he really only touches base on what we truly need in this election, is that we need something to break the gridlock of what the two parties have had for so long, and I wonder what it's going to truly take for a third party candidate to break the actual political process hold that the two parties have had for so long.
Thanks very much. Wall Street Journal Marketplace section has too close to call. Race to project winners test TV. Kathy Chen writes in this, since 1990, all the major networks plus CNN and the AP have used the same exit poll service, now dubbed Voter News Service. It samples precincts across the country and has a first wave of data available by early afternoon on Election Day. Subscribers will have access via an elaborate computer system to the same data VNS experts do. While VNS provides state-by-state projections, networks can make their own calls early as soon as the polls have closed if they're confident about how a state is going. In an hour at 8:15 Eastern Time, Frank Newport of the Gallup poll will be joining us to talk about exit polling in particular and polling in general and what you might expect to hear. A special focus on polling coming up in about an hour. Hampton, Virginia, good morning.
Yes, I didn't understand. I didn't understand why the press never investigated any of the things that were said about Bush. All of the things came out that his father had given big sums of money at all the schools where he went, and they had to give him C, that someone else had done all of his lessons, all of his papers, his research, everything. And I don't understand any of it, how he got in grad school. These things should have been investigated.
Thanks, Hampton. Grand Junction, Colorado, out on the western slope, supporter of the governor. Good morning.
Well, good morning. I'm for Governor Bush. And I hope that he does win because we need him to preserve our freedom. It's all about freedom. Thank you.
Thanks, Colorado. And our next call is from Dunedin, Florida. Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome to everybody. Dunedin is home to one of the world's best 10 beaches, and I'm asking everyone across the country that likes to visit Florida to please vote for Al Gore. Jeb Bush, the Republican candidate's brother, has eliminated our emissions controls on automobiles, and we're terrified of oil rigs out in the Gulf. And if you take a look at the map of the USA, the Gulf is a huge basin. It's not a clear coastal area, and we don't need oil rigs.
Okay, thanks very much, Florida. Again, Marketplace section of Wall Street Journal. The headline is Anchors Away. Web offers data minus TV's filler. Thomas Weber writes, websites are gearing up to provide full-bore coverage of the Bush-Gore cliffhanger, as well as the results of every last congressional election, governor's race, and referendum. And unlike the television networks, which must keep as many people as possible glued to the same broadcast, outlets in cyberspace have practically unlimited time and space to report on every decision. But can a blinking web page offer the "this just in" drama of watching the returns on TV? Probably not, but there could be fireworks of a different sort if any site breaks the embargo on disclosing exit poll results prematurely, as Matt Drudge is vowing to do at drudgereport.com. And early on, when the results are trickling in, internet sites may provide something better. No filler. Web surfers can spend the night paying the bills or watching a movie, clicking for an update whenever they want. Adele, Wisconsin, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Fine.
Good.
Yes, I'd just like to say on Sunday I was watching C-SPAN, which I enjoy very much, and in Wisconsin we have 9 people running for president, and I was really appalled that one of them used the pulpit to try and better himself. Thank you.
Thank you for the call. Houston, Texas, good morning.
Good morning.
Go right ahead.
Yes, I was calling to say that I'll be voting for Harry Brown this morning, and I think people should take good looks at the third parties, particularly the libertarians, who aren't owned by any big corporations. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Houston. Front page of the New York Times has this: prospects of a slim majority add to Speaker's task. This is a look at Capitol Hill. Lizette Alvarez writes this. Representative Richard Gephardt, the Democrat who would be Speaker, has relentlessly skewered Republicans, and at a caucus meeting last month even painted his face blue, like Mel Gibson in Braveheart, to gird his colleagues for battle. To invigorate conservative minions, Representative Dennis Hastert, the Speaker, ushered Congress into a lame duck session rather than concede a few spending items to President Clinton. Mr. Hastert said he could not trust Mr. Gephardt, the minority leader, and Mr. Gephardt feels shunned by Mr. Hastert. The two have not spoken to each other since June, Mr. Gephardt said. How then would either man govern the helm of a House that could have only 1 or 2 seats separating the majority from the minority? It's the front page of the New York Times today. In the front page, excuse me, the Wall Street Journal has a story about the House race in Montana. The headline is, "The sole House seat, Montana is swamped with special interests." Greg Hitt and Helene Cooper write in the body of this story, "Seldom before have so many outside interests devoted so much time and money to so few voters. With fewer than 1 million residents, Montana has only a single seat in the House, but it's one of only a handful of competitive open seats nationally, making it a key battleground in the fight for control of the House, with Democrats scrambling for 7 seats they need to take it back." The Wall Street Journal leads story about the House race in Montana. Next call is from Selma, North Carolina, a supporter of Mr. Gore.
Yes, sir. I just voted. I voted straight Democrat ticket because I am a Democrat. And I just cannot understand why people vote Republican when we stop and look at the people that are Republicans, such as Rush Limbaugh, Henry Hyde, Jesse Helms, and Jerry Falwell. Looks like that's enough that anybody would vote Democrat to me.
When you went to the polls, how many folks were there?
About 50.
Thanks for the call from North Carolina. Duncan, Oklahoma, a supporter of the governor. Good morning.
Good morning.
Go right ahead.
Can you imagine how the press would have jumped on Bush had he gone to church and campaigned like Al Gore and Hillary and Bill Clinton has done in the last week?
Thanks, Oklahoma. Up next, a supporter of the vice president is in Williamsville, New York.
Hello, good morning, Lou.
How are you?
Fine, thank you, and good morning to the American people. I would like to make a case for Al Gore. I think if you vote George Bush, we're going to go back to supply-side economics. He's following what his own father called voodoo economics. I'm a financial advisor by trade. And the Social Security, I have no problem with individual accounts in the market. But the problem is what will happen not to current retirees. The Social Security will pay current retirees, and even if Bush's 2 terms. But people who will be retiring in the year 2015, and I've done an analysis, will find that the Social Security Trust Fund will have dried out. These are people who will be depending on the old defined benefit system and will not have saved up enough for the defined contribution system.
Thanks, New York. Milwaukee, good morning.
Good morning, Lou. What I want to say is simply this. There's a lot of speculation going on between the 2 main candidates, Gore and Bush, and we have just one little bit of evidence to help us to decide who would really make the better president. And that has to do with this. In their selections of their vice presidential candidates, Gore picked the vice president for political reasons, and Bush picked his vice presidential candidate for the man who would make the best vice president.
Thanks for the call. Pemberton, New Jersey, good morning. There's New Jersey. Good morning.
Good morning. Yes, you had that report before of the Democratic National Committee there with Robin Williams. Is that correct?
One of the new paper stories this morning?
No, sir. No, you had it on your air there about 3 months ago, and that Northern Virginia Democratic fundraiser with Vice President, the President, and Vice President with their wives there, with Robin Williams. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. And that sort of made me go against, both of them there. They were talking like, letting Robin Williams talk like that in front of the young children and everything.
Thanks, New Jersey. Roanoke, Virginia. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Fine, I think. I've already voted, and it was right minute the voting poll this morning.
How many folks were there?
I'd say maybe about 60 at about 15 after 6. So that's pretty good for that early in the morning around these parts. Now, I support Gore because I feel, not just myself, I feel like the Social Security is a big thing. And our children, I'm looking for it for our children's part. If you take Social Security away, what's going to happen if a parent should die? Who's going to take care of the children? Because I don't think anyone in a middle class has the money to take care of their children if something should happen to them, if they should be out of the picture. Who's going to pick the bill up for that? And big government's not going to. And if he gets rid of all this, what's going to happen to this situation with the children?
Thanks for the call from Roanoke. Nyack, New York. Good morning.
Yes, hi, good morning. I just want to make 2 quick comments. We are independents, live about 15 miles up the Hudson from New York City. Past 2 elections voted for Ross Perot in the past. I think Bush deserves the election. I have a feeling that all of these attacks, that all these things will happen, are just propaganda. The reason I'm calling this morning is CNN all weekend said there had been a mock election by the students of the United States, K through 12, 5 million votes, and they said that they sponsored the election and would announce the results. We kept calling CNN saying, who won the mock election, which they said, by the way, predicted the winner in the last election, and they never announced it. Is there any way you can get your computer people to find out who won the student mock election? I believe it was conducted last Thursday.
And it was conducted by who?
CNN and some other organization, but CNN sponsored the vote that was held in every school across the country, K through 12.
Thanks very much. You might want to check CNN's website, see what they have on that. A lot of stories in this election cycle about the state legislatures and control of those. The city section of the Philadelphia Inquirer has this story this morning, voting to have far-reaching effects. Results today will influence the 2002 governor's race, will also decide the next state power brokers. Thomas Fitzgerald writes from Harrisburg. Pennsylvania voters will influence the 2002 governor's race and select the political power brokers for the next decade when they make their choices today for statewide row offices in the General Assembly. Republicans and Democrats are fighting hard to determine control of the 203-seat State House. Each party now has 100 House members, and there are 3 vacancies. The party that gains a majority will be able to determine much of the legislative agenda over the next 2 years, and through redistricting, will chart the state's political course for the next 10 years. Buffalo, New York. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Hi. I'm doing fine. My name is Mary Griffin, and I'm from Buffalo, New York, and I'm for Gore, Vice President Gore, and go Gore. I hope you win. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Caller, where are you from?
I'm from Palm Desert, California.
You're on the air.
Thank you.
What do you have for us this morning?
Well, I think Gore acted like a spoiled child during the debates. He was rude, and I think he'd be bad for foreign policy, turn people off. And I know workers would have more take-home pay with Bush, but they don't realize it. Gore's after their paycheck, and I hope Bush wins, and I hope we keep America free.
Thanks for the call from California. Richmond, good morning.
Hello?
Hi.
Hi.
What's on your mind?
Oh, this is Chicago.
Oh, I'm sorry, Chicago. Go right ahead. You slipped in ahead of Richmond there.
My name is Idris Ali, and I just voted about 15 minutes ago, and I voted for Gore. And not necessarily because I believe Gore-Lieberman is the greatest selection. I think they're just simply better than the Bush-Cheney selection. And I think their social policies are more beneficial to the working people and people who are not necessarily high in social status.
Okay, thanks very much, Chicago. And Alexandria, Virginia, good morning.
Oh, good morning. I'm surprised you got on so early. My husband and I were at the polling booth at 5:45 so we could be sure and vote, and we both voted for Bush. And by the way, there were quite a few there before the 6 o'clock opening of the polls. I don't know how they were all voting, but there were well over 100 people there before 6 at our voting place.
From times you voted in the past, were there? Did you notice a lot of people then too?
No. Before, when we've been there have been very few people there. We were surprised that there was such a large turnout. We expected there would probably be because it is a presidential election, but we were there at 5:45 and